Welcome to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, bringing baby boomers proven strategies and innovative products for getting fit, staying fit, so you can live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Here's your host, best-selling author and fitness advocate, Phil Ferriss.
This is Phil Ferriss, and welcome to our show. Never Too Late for Fitness Radio provides answers and straight talk about fitness, nutrition, and healthy lifestyles for people over 50. During each show, we talk to real health and fitness experts solving real problems with proven solutions you can apply to your everyday life. My guest today is Erik Peper, PhD, an internationally known expert on holistic health, stress management, and biofeedback. He is a professor at San Francisco State University, where he was instrumental in establishing the Institute for Holistic Health Studies, the first holistic health program at a public university in the U.S. He is president of the Biofeedback Federation of Europe, BFE, and former president of the Association for Applied Psychophysiology. He has received numerous awards, such as the State of California Governor's Employee Safety Award in 2004 for his contribution to improving workplace health for computer users, and the 2005 Sheila Adler Award from AAPB for his efforts to support and encourage student participation, and the 2011 recipient of the Biofeedback Foundation of Europe Educator Award. He is an author of numerous scientific articles and books. He also publishes his blog, The Peper Perspective, Ideas on Illness, Health, and Well-Being. He has been an invited speaker at international conferences in the United States, Europe, and Asia, and is recognized expert on holistic health, stress management, and workplace health. His research interests focus on strategies to optimize health, illness prevention, holistic health, healthy computing, and respiratory psychophysiology. Well, Erik, I know that you're very excited about having your book coming out, TechStress-How Technology is Hijacking Our Lives, Strategies for Coping and Pragmatic Ergonomics. So, Erik Peper, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be invited and share. Thank you.
What I'd like to do is, what motivated you and your co-authors to write the book now?
There are probably two parts. That COVID came around as purely synchronistic at this point, but it came about by observing students in classes that they're continually being captured by digital devices. You know, when they're in class or in social settings, I think that's one. And the second one was many years ago when we first worked with persons who had neck and shoulder pain, and they were working at the computer, and they had seen let me say it differently. What they did is they had an ergonomist come, they adjusted the equipment, their keyboard was at the right height, and somehow none of that seemed to work. They still developed discomfort. And so out of that, we observed, because we were doing biofeedback, monitoring the muscle tensions, we saw that their tension stayed high even when they felt relaxed. They were breathing more shallowly when they were doing. And now today, we're all in front of screens. We look and we keep looking and we forget that we are caught by our evolutionary patterns.
Now, why don't you talk a little bit about how tech stress really has become such a large part of our lives, and it's kind of an innocuous way that it has invaded our lives.
Yeah, it's most interesting. You know, the easy way for me to think about it is to think back of us 40,000 years ago, or as we were hunting and gatherers. Okay. Think how we lived. That's how we really are wired still. Our physiology hasn't really changed. What did we do? We were walking, we were picking roots, we were walking around, we were in small groups. We would see something that could be food, it could be danger, it could be a foe, it could be a friend. We need to be continually looking at the far distance, then come nearby, far distance, nearby. We could see danger, our heart rate would go up, we would give a fight-flight response, and then, we'd either run away or potentially get injured. Right. And then we would recover. So we'd complete each of these activities. We did not have sitting disease. And when we sat, then ideally at a time of safety, we could truly relax. And everything we saw with our eyes or heard with our ears was real. And so that is who we were. Now all of a sudden, literally in really a century since we started movies, which led to video, which led to screens, we are totally different. All of a sudden, much of the information we have comes into us through our eyes, just like it did when we were walking on the savannah. We still react the same way. However, there's no change. We only look nearby. We are captivated by this changing signals because the stimulus could say, danger. I don't know. I say that. I react. And we keep sitting and we forget that sitting is natural because we want to conserve energy. Why walk, why move when body can regenerate when there were not enough calories? Now in a world where you have too many calories, that's really a disaster. And so now we keep sitting and now we forget that the position of sitting itself is unbelievably harmful for most people. We tend to sit collapsed. Our head is nudged forward to the screen. Our abdomen is compressed. We don't know any of that. We do know it a little bit when we go to dinner and we eat a big meal. And then, to make a little more space, we undo the upper button of our pants, at least for guys. We let it sit. And then you feel so much better.
Right.
But that same position, that compression occurs all the time. So that compromises, in fact, our digestion, our blood flow. And what we forget truly is that if we just sit, especially in the vertical position, which is different than lying down a little bit, slowly but surely, blood tends to pool more into our legs, which forces our heart to work harder. But it's so interesting that our calf muscles are often called the second heart for our bodies, because our calves, when the muscles contract, which would occur when you're walking, they would pump the blood right back to the heart.
Okay.
Now we have none of that. And so by the end of the day, you may have slightly more swollen feet. You feel more fatigued. I can keep going on a long list.
No, it's the predicament we're in. We're spending more time sitting, more time in front of the screen or in front of our tablets or phones.
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing is how neurologically this is really tripping us up. That we're not really aware of just kind of an impact it's having on terms of the way we think and process information. Maybe you could share some of that with us.
Yes, I'll do two. One is the conditioning component or the addictive process, and which is clearly I am sitting, I get a notification, I react to it, it's something new, so I get this positive reinforcement. And after a while, I keep checking my phone, even if it doesn't even notify. I interrupt myself, which interferes with our ability to concentrate. Think of the analogy of scuba diving. If people scuba dive, they have to go down, they compress. Then they are at the bottom where they can do work, technically. I'll call the area at the bottom doing work. And at the end, when you've done your task or it's time to come up, you come back up, you decompress. That takes time. You cannot do intensive work. And that's how many of us used to work. Now we do the inverse. What happens is we still go down, but just as we're at the bottom or not even down, a notification pops up. I react to that. That means I have to decompress, distract from my task. Then I go back in my work. So what happens is that many of us in multitasking, we're doing twice as many tasks, half as good.
Right.
Because we can't concentrate. And the second part is we don't give our brain any time to pause. We forget that. We get such stimulation that where is your own creativity going? And I think that's another part. Many of us have experienced when you have a problem or a challenge, you go for a walk. You totally do something different. You listen to music or whatever it is, and then a new solution comes up. Now we continually only flooding one way. Information just goes in. And the third part of this is what people truly forget is the massive deleterious effect of our body position. As we are sitting at the computer, we tend to slouch. Very few of us are sitting erect, proper, which we're all supposed to do, but you can't sit that long like that. You get into disc pressure, you get tired. So we collapse. or on our cell phone, we look down at the cell phone and we are in this collapsed position, which is a signal for the body of a kind of defeat, a submissive position. It is the position we have experienced when we were depressed. And we forget that our bodies communicate to our emotions and our thoughts. We used to think we only go from top down. Now the body gives equal signals. So when I am collapsing, I experience a decrease in energy. I experience that I have much more access to hopeless, helpless thoughts. I'm more quickly tired. And the listener, as you're listening to this, you can just change. For a moment, just sit up. Really reach up. Really do it for a moment. Be crazy. Bring your arms way up. And now take your hands, tap your arms for a moment. With the other hand, just really tap. Then tap your legs. Feel the tingling as you're tapping and slapping against you. You can even rub your forehead, your face for a moment. Unimportant. We just did a slight movement and you feel slightly more alive, slightly more energized. Your mood even went up. It's most impressive when people take these breaks. Yet, why should I take breaks when I'm working at the computer? Because there's new information. There could be danger, not in our real world, but in our early evolutionary world. We are reacting so we don't stop. If that makes sense.
And you mentioned about the mechanism of rehearsal, where as athletes and as doctors and as pilots, we rehearse these things so that we get good at it. But now we're subconsciously rehearsing bad things, physically, emotionally, and that has the same kind of impact as that practice makes permanent. So talk a little bit about how this works.
Absolutely. So when we are imagining or rehearsing something, we are really preparing the neurological pathways for that action. The easiest way to think about it, if I ask you to imagine a lemon, you would close your eyes. Don't do that when you're driving. Then you hold a lemon in your hand, you look at it, you cut it in half, you eventually squeeze it in a glass and really squeeze it. You feel the droplets of lemon juice, then you bring the glass to your lips and you drink the lemon juice. And for most people, when you guide them through that way, they feel salivation. Wait a minute, it's only an imagery. But that's what happens to our bodies when we image. So what you're saying is that what we imagine and rehearse is what it becomes. The limits of our experience is the limits of our imagination, which is a critical issue. And if you think about the process many of us do, is when we do something wrong, we blame ourselves. Oh, I was stupid. I can't do that, or whatever. Instead, what you want to say, it happened. Because you can't rewrite the past, really. You can't relive it. However, you can ask the question, really, given that I did this, it's really the only thing I could have done given the wisdom I had at that moment. Even though I just did it. Given the wisdom I have now, looking back, how could I have done it differently? And now you imagine yourself step by step, seeing yourself doing it differently. So you shift from blaming to problem solving and creating a new pathway in your brain so you can perform much better next time. Okay. But it's interesting when we do that with students. So they would say, and clients too, they say, oh, I didn't study last night or whatever. Then the question is, okay, given the wisdom you have now, what would you have done differently? Well, I would have put the study time in my calendar. I turned the clock back. I planned my day there from 7 to 8:30. I studied this subject, etc. So, and then I see myself in my imagination reliving that day from 7 to 8. I see myself literally looking at my calendar. I get the notification. I study, etc. When students do that, they report 2 weeks later that they feel slightly more energized. They procrastinate less and they perform better. And this really is the same strategy athletes do.
Sure.
Mental rehearsal is critical. You have to be able to see where you want to go.
Okay. Now, talk a little bit more about some of how these pitfalls impact our health. Some of the, we talked about depression or lack of energy. Are there some other health issues that we should be really aware of that this?
Well, the classic one people experience is that we are looking at the screen. And as we look at the screen, our blinking rate goes way down. We tighten our neck a bit. And by the end of the day, for almost everybody now, their eyes feel tired. And when they look outside, their vision is really worse for a little while. The world looks more fuzzy.
Okay.
And if you have little children and they spend most of their time in front of screens, which kids now do, unlike even 40 years ago when we'd be going outside and playing in the woods, maybe we'd be looking at something close and then something far. We would be doing motor coordinational patterns as well. The children today, such as in Singapore, 80% now, by the time they're in high school, wear glasses. The reason is, as little kids, if all your world is very close, the 20 inches of the screen or the 12 inches of the screen, your eyes are still growing and changing, and its length will change. And so it will start focusing correctly at this very near distance. That means as you're older, you're nearsighted. It's so, and the question is, what can you do?
Right.
And the easy one to do is at this moment is look outside. Let me give you the experience. Just for a moment, really concentrate on the screen like, oh my God, I must get that. I don't want to really concentrate hard. Concentrate harder. And when you're doing that, at this moment, notice you haven't blinked. Your eyes stay open. You can feel a slight coolness in the eye almost. You probably held your breath for a moment. You tightened your shoulder, except you had no idea you were doing that. That's how we so often work. Now for a moment, if you have a window, look outside, look at the far distance. And as you're looking outside, look at, if there's green there, that would even be better. Let your eyes sort of drift to the far horizon. And as it does there, it would relax the eyes more. And if you want to feel the difference, how you can even with blinking change that experience, is just close your eyes. And now, when you inhale, open your eyes with surprise almost. Like, so what you do is your eyes are closed. Now you inhale and open your eyes at the same time. And notice, and then you stay that way for a moment. You tend to gasp in your chest. You tend to have your eyes open. Now do the opposite. Close your eyes. Let a breath inhale into your stomach. Let your stomach get bigger. And then, as the air flows out very gently and softly, let your eyes float open. And when the eyes now float open, you almost feel a little bit more liquid in the eyes. They're a little bit more relaxed. Do this every time you do a mouse click. Every time you go down the rabbit hole. It's surprising how simple movements, simple things can often make giant differences.
Okay. What are some indicators that we should be looking for? Because most of us are kind of in denial. I got to get this work done. I get task driven. But what are some physical, emotional, mental cues that we should be aware of that will tell us that maybe we're starting to feel the negative impact of tech stress? So if we don't tell people what to look for, they won't necessarily recognize it. We mentioned about the tightness of the neck, the shoulders, and then the eyes being dry and blurry. What are some other things we should be looking for?
Well, the indicators are obvious for the outsider. We can see that the muscle tension in the shoulders tend to go up a little bit. So if you just check for a moment, sit back, okay, let your shoulders and arms drop more. You tend to breathe more in your chest than in your abdomen. Why is that important? The chest breathing tends to increase into anxiety and even blood pressure increase. If you breathe lower, you tend to regenerate more. The challenge is what you really are raising. We're only aware when it's too late. Meaning, oh yes, my eyes are dry. I have a tension in my neck and shoulders. I feel stiff. My back hurts. Because we are focusing on the task. And why should we be checking in our bodies? So what I've really learned is one needs to do proactive work. Okay. How do I do that? I now have installed a break program on my computer. Okay. That means, and they're free ones you can get. There's one, for example, called stretchbreak.com. You can download as a free app on your computer. It's great because you can set the time and let's say every 20 minutes, it reminds you, it pops in the screen and do it. You still have to do it. And what many people will do is they tend to, I don't want to do it. Train yourself to be conditioned. And if you really do it many times, it becomes more automatic. You'll find one of the most interesting observations if you do this during the day. This comes from an observation we did at San Francisco State with a group of employees. We had a man who said, I am perfect. I have no problems at all. I'm exaggerating, but not really. He felt really good, the employee. And we persuaded him then to take these breaks every 15, 20 minutes. He came back the next group session and he said, there's life after 5. And what he meant by that was he never realized that by the end of the day, his energy had sort of flagged. And now by taking these mini breaks, his energy stayed up. And when he left his job, he had much more energy for himself and his family.
Great.
So that is probably the cheapest way to do it. Another way to do it, because I have no idea that when I'm sitting, getting involved, I start collapsing. And what I said earlier, when we collapse, especially if we have a history of depression or sad or whatever these emotions are at that moment, the position will amplify that more, will get us more access to negative thoughts, less energy. And I don't know I'm doing it. So what I now use is a device called Upright Go. It's a little biofeedback device that runs on your cell phone. See, we use technology positively as well. Yep. And we put it on our spine. And when you now start collapsing, it vibrates.
Okay.
And it's a great reminder because sometimes I collapse because I'm going forward to the screen. Okay. That tells me I may need to do the ergonomic changes. Maybe I need glasses. Maybe my screen needs to be bigger. Other times I'm slouching because I'm tired. Well, maybe I need to take a short break, go for a walk around the neighborhood. Other times I slouch because I have hopeless, helpless thoughts and I need to change those thoughts. It's a very useful device, and people who use this often report significant increase in energy and a significant reduction in neck and shoulder discomfort.
Okay.
I mean, I can keep going. There's one more. You can use an electromyograph. That is a device that measures your muscle tension. And we're truly, it's hard to believe, unaware that our muscles tighten. A device like this would show you on your screen or by a sound, oops, your muscle just tightened. And you look, I had no idea. And you can just see this with your friends. Many people, when they're mousing still and they're waiting, you can see how the index finger is held up in the air.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait a minute. But when the finger is held up, it means I'm continually tightening the forearm muscle, the extensors. And yet I'm unaware of it. I don't even know I'm doing it. So assume you're unaware and just take a moment, wiggle around, and then continue.
I know one of the things I have on my watch is a breathing alert, and periodically during the day, it says, the chime goes off and it's time to do a minute of deep breathing exercises. And it's conditioned me. I look at my watch and go, okay.
Yes, and you're perfectly, you're inhaling through your nose. I think the only piece I would now add in the world for breathing is I would definitely always inhale through my nose because that filters the air, it moisturizes, it may even reduce the COVID, the coronavirus going in as deeply. And then when I exhale, I would also exhale through my nose because the flow will be slower. It will automatically let the flow be slower usually. Okay. And then I would want to breathe about every 10 seconds. So you inhale for a breath for a count of 3 or 4. hold for a second without really holding, and very gently let the air flow out, almost wait before the air comes back in again. And I would do that, and then think of a positive image as well. Think of someone you love. Think of a memory when you felt really happy, and start combining those. So really your heart opens and you feel so much better.
Okay, I'll make those changes, because that made a big difference. Within a couple of weeks, my blood pressure went way down. It was like
absolutely. And the other part is check your clothing. I want to go back to that one line. I used to call it designer's jeans syndrome.
Okay.
But it's basically your waist is too tight, and many of us have a slight bigger waist, and we put our belt tight around it, or we try to pull it in. But when we do that, we are compromising our health. We're compromising our digestion. We're compromising our breathing. That means our heart has to work harder. So learn to let the breathing be lower. I always go back to the 19th century. For when women used to wear corsets. And they were very tight. And those women used to develop an illness called neurasthenia, which were all the symptoms of anxiety, of, heart palpitations, fainting, etc. When they loosened their corset and no longer wore it, those symptoms disappeared.
Okay.
And when we sit at the chair, which we sit so often, we are almost getting our stomach compressed so we breathe shallower in our chest.
Okay. Of all the different tricks and strategies that you have in your book, is there one last one that you find particularly helpful for people over 50? That's the primary demographic of my podcast. So what are some things that the person over 50 can particularly benefit from the strategies in your book?
I think there are 3 or 4. So let me go. 1, ergonomics.
Okay.
Ergonomics means, are you sitting at the right chair with the right heights and the keyboard? If you're using a laptop, there's no way to sit correctly, because either your hands are at the right position, low down, but that means you have to look down, or if the screen is high, you have to bring the hands up. Mm-hmm. Impossible. So invest into it. And the keyboard, especially one that's split or so, that helps for people. Okay. And or 2, get a screen. So that's 1. 2, check your vision. Many people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s start wearing essentially progressive glasses. Those are difficult on the screen. Okay. And the reason is that progressive glasses, the place of focus is a very narrow line. That means I have to hold my head stiff. I don't know I do it still to look for that place of focus. Have computer glasses for the distance appropriate to the screen. That's 2.
What do you mean by distance glasses appropriate?
Okay. I may be sitting, I look at what is my normal habitual distance from the screen to my eyes. Then I go to the optometrist and I say, I want glasses that bring that screen in focus over those 18 inches.
Okay.
That is much better. Now your eyes can look in many different ways on the screen and stay in focus.
Now, would you use different glasses for the screen than you might do for reading or watching TV? Or
probably reading and screen are fairly close. Often reading is closer up for many people. Okay. So ideally, you would have to get a second set. I know the worst ones you can do are essentially the bifocals, because then you go like this and the neck tends to tighten, except you're unaware of it. So that's glasses. Take many vision breaks. Yep. That means look at the end of a click, look out, look back. Do movement. It's critical. Okay. It is the most important part to interrupt. Remember, you are wired as a hunting and gatherer. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
3 or 4, before going to sleep at night, because so many people as they get slightly older have more disturbed sleep or have difficulties. Turn off all computer, television screens at least 30 to 45 minutes before planning to go to bed. The reason is that the screens, although we don't see it, produce a lot of blue light, which suppresses melatonin, which reduces our natural sleep hormone. 4, when around the house at night, because we may get up to go to the bathroom, etc., be sure all the lights are off. Then it's easy to go back to sleep. If you're worried about falling and stuff like that, get a few red lights. Color their light. It's true. Have the light bulbs be like Christmas lights or whatever it is. There are red light bulbs to illuminate. That will not suppress melatonin.
Okay.
And in your own bedroom, be sure it's really dark. And we live in a world with massive light pollution. All the little flickerings of our chargers, turn those off. Shield the windows in the sense of a dark black curtain, so that when a car goes down the street, the light doesn't interfere. We are unbelievably sensitive to light disruption. 5, for sleep as well. Turn off your notifications. And now going back to working at the computer, I said already, I want to say it again and again and again. Take many breaks. Take many, many breaks. It is the critical part. And learn to practice lower, slower breathing. And then, when any doubt, get up, just for a moment, stand on your toes, go down again, stand on your toes, go down again, or do a slight squat and go back up and down. You are now activating your second heart, metaphorically, to pump blood back to yourself.
Well, those are all things that I have done, but haven't done them consistently all the time. And so what's the best way to make sure that you implement these things on a day-to-day basis?
I think the easiest way is have social support. So if you're living with people, persuade your partner, your wife, your children to do it together. That's 1. 2, in social settings, although people who are digital immigrants tend to do this less, do not use a cell phone in social settings, except to find information which restaurant to go to or to order from, but that's different.
Okay.
Do not. So when you're meeting friends, put your cell phone, literally turn it off or silent. Don't even have the vibrator going, because you'll feel the cell phone in your skin. It's true. It works out. The cell phone is there in your pocket. And every so often you're aware of that sensation and you want to check it. At that moment, we have just socially disconnected from the person we are with. Okay. And I think that is great. And I would recommend for all families, when they get together, they put all the cell phones in a bucket at the front door, and for the time they're together, not. It doesn't mean you turn them off. I realize there's an important part of emergency and all this as well. There are many advantages.
One of the ways of combating the issues that we have with COVID is connection.
Yes.
And when we're connected, we spend all our time on the phone, we're defeating the purpose, the benefits that we can get from connecting with people. So when you're going to connect with people, connect with them, enjoy that, recharge yourself. Yes. And then when you got to go back to work and you got to go back to work, then do that, but don't try and mix the two.
Yes, and it's even more interesting because now we are doing an interview by screen. I'll do a social call on the screen. I'll do my university work on the screen. People do their dating on the screen.
Right.
And it's interesting. We do everything on the same setting. So remember, we work much better if we have different cues. So if you go to work on the screen, I highly recommend you wear work clothing. Okay. Get yourself set. Put a different shirt on, not the t-shirt you normally use. Use a red one or purple one. I don't care. But that's your work clothing. Even put a wall hanging behind your screen, which is different. Now you have cued yourself. This is my work setting.
Okay.
Then you take those cues off after work, and then you have a different cue for your social setting. Okay. So at least you keep these roles a bit separate.
Okay, you're setting parameters, you're setting boundaries for yourself, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, socially, so that it is easier to make the transition.
Correct.
That's great. Well, Erik, I want to thank you so much for being on the show and sharing everything. So if people want to get a copy of your book, which comes out the 25th of August, TechStress-How Technology is Hijacking Our Lives, Strategies for Coping and Pragmatic Ergonomics, where would they go and where would they go to get more information about you and your practice?
Okay. The book can be bought obviously on any bookseller that ranges from the publisher, which is North Atlantic, to Amazon or any Barnes and Nobles. Anywhere you normally buy books, the book is available. Just go to the web, search for TechStress by Erik, Peper, Rick Harvey, and Nancy Faass. I think that's one. For those who want to know more about some of these concepts, I would recommend two, or I would even see clients that way. Sometimes even online. I would recommend looking at my blog that is www.pepperperspective.com. And that's Pepper with one P in the middle, P-E-P-E-R, perspective.com. We have done about 180 blogs on those. Many have exercises. They're based in science. They give references. Put the question you have in the search box. It's very helpful. The last couple have dealt with tech stress, so there are some really useful hints and practices to do.
And I can recommend the content on his blog is very useful, very helpful, very easy to use. So it's a great resource to use for yourself. All right. I want to thank you again so much, Erik, for sharing your information. I'm looking forward to getting the book and letting up a great review for it. And you have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I very much enjoyed it. Be healthy.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, hosted by Phil Ferris. To learn more about the guests or resources on our show today, or to listen to past episodes, go to nevertoolateforfitness.com.